I'm going to be going over every single DPS tower, starting with the worst and going to the very best. Enjoy. Swarmer fails at its only role as a solo mode DPS tower. Swarm is supposed to act like a DPS tower that slowly builds up B stacks on an enemy, which increases its DPS. These B stacks max out at 160 DPS per Swarmer. Given the fact that it has no placement limit, that means you can get 6,400 total DPS, with all of them placed down, which on paper doesn't seem that bad until you realize Minigunner has the exact same DPS, except it doesn't have to build it up, and it has even more range. And it also has no placement limit. So, what the heck? This all makes Swarmer practically unusable as a tower. Unlike the failure that is Swarmer, Biologist is by no means a bad tower, as it doubles as a support and a DPS tower, being able to switch between different plants to help to take out enemies. In its prime, it could help beat Polludeleson's 2 solo. Biologist also has a DPS of 206, with all of its sunflowers, and with a placement of 8, that gives it a potential DPS of 1,650, which is not bad. And with its variety of plants, it could have every detection, all with an impressive cost efficiency, and it could debuff enemies. It all sounds great, right? But the problem with Biologist arises from its only source of DPS being from its units, and units can't be buffed by external sources. This makes Biologist suffer from a lack of significant DPS, which really holds it back from its true potential. And if you really want to bring a support mixed DPS, then you're better off bringing something different, like Sabo. Sabo's just better. Just bring him. Like, come on. This one really pains me, as back when Harvester was a crowd control tower, it was my favorite tower in the game. Now Harvester aims to be a DPS, support, and crowd control, all at the same time, and it really just doesn't make any sense. I'm seeing a recurring theme here. At first, you might notice its slow attack speed, which is weird considering the fact that it has flying and hidden detection, making it an anti-air unit, but air enemies are typically fast, so it's an odd pick for Harvester. Its total DPS is a disheartening 1,200 DPS. Each individually, they each have 240. However, with their Vines ability, it has DPS of 70, so when combined, it could actually have even more DPS, but it's still not that good. Its Vines can slow enemies, and they stack with nearby farms, allowing for decent crowd control, but it's just really outclassed by other towers of similar niches, like Operator, who could just bring for early game, or Ace, who just does a better job overall. It's a weird tower in a weird position. Gatling, in its prime, was the strongest tower in the game, and is still really good when paired with Hacker. But now if you want to pair something with Hacker, just use Juggernaut, who just simply has more DPS. Gatling has a depressing placement limit of 1, and a pierce of 2.5, making it pierce one enemy, and then, like, deal half damage to one behind. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Now, since it does have the pierce, it does give it some good cost efficiency, and it does have the second highest DPS in the game, right behind Juggernaut. And when I say like right behind, I mean like pretty far behind. With its DPS of 670, the main problem is it needs consistent micro, and it still has weak single target DPS. But overall, it's not that bad of a tower. Turret is basically a worse accelerator. But seriously, Turret is a strong DPS option with its placement limit of 3 and strong stats across the board. With an impressive DPS of 566, all equipped with hidden and lead detection. Turret is really good, but once you get stronger towers like Accelerator, it really falls off, especially because Accelerator was recently made much easier to obtain in the Hardcore Rework update. It's just not, it kind of fell off a little bit. It's just not the same, it's just not the same, man. Still though, it has good early level cost efficiency and overall not a bad tower. Pursuit's top path is a strong DPS option, with its placement limit of 6, each with 302 DPS. It has flying and lead detection with its missiles, however it doesn't have any hidden detection, and It can be moved around the map to achieve map range with the right micro. It has a small base range, which can make it unreliable against fast or hidden enemies. And this could really hold it back from being a good tower. Warlock acts between a mix between DPS and crowd control, with a main attack that deals 357 DPS, as well as slight knockback that's not so significant. With its placement limit of 4, it has a total of 1,428 DPS, which may not seem that good. However, its main selling point is its melee attack, dealing only 306 DPS, but it has a max hits of 3, as well as applying bleed. Overall, a great tower that has unique functionality and can achieve significant DPS with good placement. This is where towers start getting better. Gold Crook Boss is a mid to late game unit tower with overall good cost efficiency, but its units turn that good cost efficiency into a great cost efficiency. By itself, it has a DPS of 350, and with its placement limit of 5, allows it to achieve 1,750 DPS. Not bad at all. With its units, it can gain an additional 80 or so DPS, making the tower on average have around 2,150 DPS total, but that's not always reliable. It also has hidden detection at level 2, and flying detection off rip. All that with a decent range of 24 makes for a pretty nice tower. Gold Mini is the king of solo gameplay, which makes it hard to rank, with its rather poor DPS of 200, but no placement limit, which more than makes up for this. This means that G-Mini has a max DPS of 8,000 with 40 placed. However, this is only in solo, and getting that much DPS outside of solo of G-Mini is difficult to say the least. Outside of solo, G-Mini still works well as a fill-in DPS, but with its only detection being hidden detection, you're really just better off with something else. Commando is Harvester and Biologist done right, with strong stun, crowd, and DPS, as well as all detections. I know it doesn't have lead detection, but it has mines, and the mines basically count. Its mines can stall as well, which, you know, that's pretty important. It has a DPS of 231, and a placement limit of 8, making it have a total DPS of 1,850, and that's not even to mention its pierce and splash damage. All this with a cheap cost of 39,000 per commando? What's the issue? Well, commando does have a small max range of only 20, which holds it back. But it still has a lot of DPS and still an amazing tower with great aspects. Oh, I actually hate this one. So, Necro used to be my favorite tower, but what was once an underrated tower is now one of the most overrated towers. I swear every single TDS video that has the word Necro has at least 500 comments that are straight Necro glazers. Oh, Necro is the best gem tower. Oh, Necro is amazing. Oh, I want Necromancer to marry my daughter. Wait. Anyways, Necro is a beast of a late game tower, being able to pump out some crazy numbers. With a placement limit of 3, it has a total of 600 DPS. If all 3 of them at max level, which sounds pretty bad. However, what I failed to mention earlier is that Necro is a unit tower, and it's one of the few unit towers that gets nearly fully buffed by DPS buffs, as the damage it does fills up a bar which determines how often it can make graves, and thus summon its units. Additionally, its units also have no max time limit, so theoretically you could have infinite on the field. Necro also has every detection at max, and with its units it can outdamage turret by quite a bit. It also comes with a map range. What's not to love? Well, Necro is really only awesome at max level, as its earlier levels are subpar at best. Sure, level 2 is good, but its mid to late game transition is awful, with its level 3 being uncomfortable. Also, relying on units for majority of your DPS is not a good idea, as one strong boss attack could wipe it clean. Overall, a very powerful tower of great capabilities at max level. Ranger is a cliff tower with map range and crowd control potential. Having a Ranger on your team is great, as it has 250 DPS on max level. It can also hit 3 enemies at once on max level. It also gives a range buff on level 2 to nearby towers, and has flying and lead detection. With its placement limit of 8, it has a total of 2,000 DPS, and its map range makes up for its slow attack speed. The only thing holding it back is its lack of hidden detection, but nonetheless, it's an amazing tower on all levels. So what if there was a tower that was turret, but with an extra 2 placement slots? Well, do I have news for you. Accelerator is the gold standard for late game DPS, having just under 2,500 combined DPS, with both lead and hidden detection, and with an above average range and good cost efficiency. Excels in DPS in most game modes and is overall an amazing tower. I'll be honest, it gets hated on way too much. It does not deserve all this hate. What are we doing? Unlike most towers on this list, NG, instead of being a mid to late game tower, is a early to late game tower, with every detection on the first few levels. NG has amazing cost efficiency on all levels, and top tier range. She summons turrets that take up about half her DPS, and while the turrets aren't buffable, she is, allowing for nerfed buffs, but her versatility makes up for this. At max level, with a placement limit of 6 reached, they have a combined DPS of 2,200. It's never a bad idea to bring NG into a loadout. Unless you're following a strategy. If you're following a strategy, I don't know why you would ever bring NG into a loadout. Do not. Kingpen is basically Necro, but with an extra placement limit, and no hidden detection. Kingpen has a max DPS of 460, and when combined, can achieve wild levels of DPS, like 3,000 kind of wild. And because their DPS is so high on their own, they can still benefit from great buffs. While Kingpen does not have every detection, its units do, and they can be an unreliable way to deal with them. It's also worth noting that you only get lead detection at max level, which kind of messes things up. However, its bouncers can deal with lead quite well up until then. Overall, a great DPS option that could obliterate everything, even without hidden detection. Finally, the strongest DPS tower in TDS. It's the Juggernaut. This is pretty obvious. Juggernaut is an absolute unit of a tower, with its placement limit of 1 and its absurd DPS. Its top path aims to be a support, with stun reduction from nearby towers, good cost efficiency, and has flying and hidden detection. While its bottom path aims for DPS with a 1.4 times boss damage multiplier, as well as hidden and lead detection. Top path has a DPS of almost 1,800, and bottom has a DPS of about 2,000, which against bosses can go up to a whopping 2,800 DPS. Its placement limit of 1 also helps it stay within range of tower buffs, and helps you get some really nice placement on it. Its S tier range also really helps with this. Juggernaut could also synergize with Hacker extremely well, as it could just clone it and double its DPS. It is undoubtable that Juggernaut is the unmatched king of DPS towers. Hey, so this is probably the hardest I've worked on a video yet, so I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. If you don't agree with anything I said, then just say it in the comments. Hey, thanks for watching though. Bye!